Hi everybody, and we're inside the Poor Decisions tap room right now, which is currently the home of Bent Brewstillery. And I am sitting here with Bartley, the owner of Bent Brewstillery.
Hi.
And he's going to talk to us about some of his great beers and why he chose to make them and why he decided to get into brewing. And we're going to get to taste some beers here that will hopefully be on the shelves of liquor stores near you around November 1st. So grab a beer, dig in with us, and prost.
So,
Okay.
we'll start with this one.
Sure, we'll start with this one.
All right. This is the Nordic Blonde. This is a combination between a blonde ale and a cream ale and a pale ale.
Now, how did you come up with that recipe? Was this just something you homebrewed once one day and it really worked out for you, or?
Basically, that's it. I brew what I like to drink is how it all came out. This is actually the very first beer I ever brewed as a home brewer.
Okay.
It was just an ale recipe from a Mr. Beer kit that, turned out to be just what I was looking for.
You started out with Mr. Beer Kit too, huh?
I did.
So did I. So
yes, it was a gift from my wife, who's regretted it ever since. It's one of those things that you can't go back. But,
no, definitely.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. That's really how I got started, was with that Mr. Beer kit.
Mm-hmm.
I was back in 2007, and I just haven't looked back.
Now, at what point did you say, "Hey, I need to brew beer for a living"?
Wow, that was probably after I met the Lift Bridge guys in 2008.
2008.
Chili cook-off.
Okay.
In Stillwater.
And what was it about that triggered that notion?
I realized that it was possible.
Okay.
They had been doing it for a while now, operating out of their garage and contract brewing and having their beer made. And I was like, well, that sounds like it's something that can easily be done. And it's something that I enjoy quite a bit. And it's the American dream to make a hobby into a profession.
Absolutely, it is.
And it worked as soon as those first few batches of extract were done. And I realized that this was something that I could potentially do for a career. I went straight to all grain brewing. There was no partial mash, no step in between.
So you went from walk to run, and
I did, and that was it was all with the overriding view of recipe development. I've got to perfect these recipes before I can make anything real and go out, to the public. I can't go out to the public with an amateur recipe. It's got to be very polished. It's got to be just right, and it was one of the things that took a lot of time. Years went by. It was the following year that Fulton announced that they were coming out with their brewery, and I actually said to myself, man, I'm too late. Since then, there's been, 20 or so breweries opening up.
It's been a big boom.
Apparently I wasn't too late, but it took another couple of years and watching the industry grow until I finally decided again that, it's time to get into it. I can do this. And took the steps to make that possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you are also slated here, you're also working on, I should say, on becoming Minnesota's first brewstillery, where we are combining a brewery with a distillery. How did you get into distilling on top of the brewing?
Well, it all started with a book, actually.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I read quite a bit. I read a book about distilling, and it fascinated me. I said, this is actually even more scientific than brewing. And brewing is very scientific. It's scientific in the process control, and it's artistic in control of that process control and the ingredient selection and things like that. Distilling is yet another step of process and control above brewing, where you have yet another step of the distillation process. And that to me was just fascinating. And I read more and more books about it, and that's when I decided I'm going to do both.
So what's your rough estimate for our audience to when your first whiskey will be available?
I'm hoping the first whiskey will be available around the first of the year. But no, it's one of those things that, again, the fascination was there, and I knew it was something that I could do with a scientific background. My past life was an electrical engineer. So those sorts of things, really appeal to my sense of creativity. As an engineer, you don't get a lot of chances to be creative. You're mostly following a lot of guidelines, and equations and theory and things like that. So the creativity doesn't really always come into play as much as you want it to. I consider myself kind of left and right brain. I feel that I'm somewhat creative as well as logical. So, to me, it was a logical progression into a more complicated thing, and I think it's something that's going to be great. All my recipes for my distilled spirits are very brewing focused. I won't be using any distiller's grains. I won't be using stuff that people throw out. I'll be using 100% distiller or brewer's grade malts and grains for all my whiskeys and my bourbon and everything else. It's going to be brewed like a brewery would do it, yet the other step of distilling it as opposed to just boiling it and fermenting.
Yeah, exactly. So can you tell us a little bit about your first whiskey? I know I read a little bit about it on your website, but if you wouldn't mind telling our audience about it,
Yeah, my first whiskey is going to be a pure malt whiskey. It's also going to be 100% smoked malts. I'm using, again, high-quality brewer's malts for this whiskey for fermentation. It's a bit of a misnomer, but it will be unaged. It won't be white. I haven't found many white whiskeys out there yet that are what I would like to have in a whiskey. What I'm going to do is I'm going to filter it with charred oak and charred applewood. And that's going to give it a somewhat of an aging process in that it'll give it color and it'll filter out some of the off flavors left over from the distillation process, which is what aging is all about. It's about making it smoother. It's about taking out some of the off flavors, and just by happenstance, it gives it color. My whiskey will be colored whiskey, and it'll be a whiskey color. It won't be white, and it'll have actual flavor from the wood that it filters through. But it is marketed as an unaged pure malt whiskey, which is why I'm calling it unpure.
So, tell me again about this one. This was a combination of, you said, 3 styles. What were those?
Right. It's the combination of a blonde ale, a cream ale, and a pale ale.
Now, what brings in the combination? Is it the ingredients that you're using? Is it the fermentation process you're using? Or is it kind of a combination of all of it?
It's a combination of the ingredients and how it's treated.
Okay.
It is the ingredients from a cream ale is that there is corn in there. Now, the corn adds a lot of lightness of flavor, as opposed to an adjunct to lighten, so you can use more grains. It's used more as a flavor adjunct and a lightener.
So it's not being used like a lot of national brands would use it. It's being used as a lightener.
Exactly. Then it uses two-row, so that brings in the blonde aspect of it, two-row pale. I also use a little bit of Munich in there in order to give it a little bit more richness and give it a little bit more color. If it's too light, it doesn't appeal to me. I like a little bit of color to my beer. And then you give a little bit extra hoppiness. Blonde ale or cream ale, you really won't get much hop coming through. This one, you really want a little bit of hop character, but not so much as a pale ale. So it makes a very nice, easy drinking beer. It's my summer beer I drink year round.
What's the ABV on this one?
It's 5.7.
5.7, so a little higher than a session beer, but still very drinkable for a 5.7. So
yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I was going for. I actually came from a world of mainstream beer drinking. Back in the 2000s, I was a Michelob drinker.
I think at all points we were one of those.
Yeah, and I really wanted to make something that I wanted to drink every day. And this is what I came up with. This, again, was first brewed in 2007, and it's just evolved ever since into what it is today. It's finally ready for the public.
So as I'm picking up and drinking this, what sort of flavor notes should I be noticing out of this beer? I mean, what do you want me to? What should I focus in on as a drinker?
As a drinker, you really want to focus in on the balance of the beer. It does have a good bit of malt in it in order to get to the 5.7 range. And then the hoppiness, a little bit of citrusy that you get from the Cascade. And then the floral notes and things like that you get out of the sauce. which is one of my favorite noble hops.
That is my favorite noble hops. So yeah, it's very well balanced. It does have that hops taste to it, but yet it's still kind of smooth in the background. You can still pick up the maltiness of it. Very well balanced and good carbonation levels on it. And it's perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want it to become one of those palate pummeling beers. You know, so many pale ales can be extremely punishing to the palate.
You'd be surprised how many times I hear that from professional brewers.
Yeah, and then sometimes you want something that's going to leave a clean taste in your mouth and not make it pucker. You know, but don't get me wrong, I love a double IPA. You know, that's a great beer, but this is something that, you know, it's easy drinking.
You know, I have to admit, I mean, I really like your the style of your labels here in your graphics and stuff. How did you come up with the name Nordic Blonde?
It actually started out as North Star Blonde. Being that we're in the land of the North Star and all that, I thought that would be the appropriate name for the beer. I came to learn later that Town Hall has a beer named North Star Lager. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So I changed it to Nordic Blonde.
It's a good name for it.
Yeah.
I want you to check out the head on this beer. It's a nice, smooth, creamy, dark brown. And just look at how it cascaded as you poured. No nitrous on this one at all. I mean, it's just a straight out pour right out of a bomber bottle. This is perfect. So let's talk about the beer that's in front of us. So this is the Dark Father, the Imperial Stout.
Yes, definitely. This is the American Imperial Stout.
Okay. And what makes it that?
Again, it all has to do with my aversion to be classified. I won't be classified.
You're going to brew what you want.
I'm going to brew what I want. I'm going to call it whatever the hell I want. Really, when I brewed this, there was no classification that I knew to fit it in. I didn't brew it because I wanted to brew, you know, something in particular to hit some certain style guidelines. And that's kind of my whole company mantra, you know, is staying away from the guidelines that are put in front of you because, you know, you don't want to be put in a box. I don't expect to do well in competitions. I never have because I either don't put it in the right category because I could care less. You know, I mean, it'd be great to win a competition. You know, all I care about is it good? You know, that's a scale of 1 to 10. It's not, you know, it doesn't fit the style guidelines or not, you know, and it's just one of the things that I've always been very, I guess, not even mindful of is what is the guideline that I'm trying to hit.
That's good to hear that too, because I'm noticing that as a lot of our craft beer breweries from even 5 years ago, as they start to get bigger, I see them losing that identity of, hey, we're going to just brew what we want, and they kind of lose that as they grow bigger, and they start moving into that whole production system where they're brewing to what their customers are expecting.
Right.
That's, I guess, the answer I'm looking for.
Yeah, and there's a lot to that as well. I mean, the survivability is making something that people are going to want. But does everyone want a milk stout? You know, well, does everyone want a pale ale? Just a pale ale? I mean, no.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to, I think, to find something that everyone's going to enjoy without it being strict style guidelines, you know, for that sort of thing. And there's actually a very interesting story behind this beer. Back when I first started home brewing, I actually hated stouts. I really had never drank a stout that I liked. Well, I had a lot of friends, though, that really liked the famous, infamous stout, you know, that started off from Ireland. And I said, well, I'll brew a beer for them, you know, because they're over all the time. What the heck, I'll brew something that they're going to like. Mixed everything together, what I thought was going to make a stout, you know, and tasted it around bottling time and said, this is horrible. They're going to love it. I thought it was bad. It could have been stout like, it could not have been stout like. I don't know. I wasn't really into stouts at the time. So bottled it up, set it aside. This is the middle of winter. Spring came around and I had my annual spring barbecue at the house. A bunch of people came over and I broke out this beer and said, hey, here's for all you stout lovers, you know, have a try, see what you think. Well, everyone was raving about it. And I'm like, yeah, right. You know, you're just saying that because you're at my house. You know?
Yeah.
No, really, it's good. Let me try it. I took a sip and I was like, this is a completely different beer than the one I tasted 3 months ago. after 3 months' time, the flavors melded together, it mellowed out, and everything just really rolled into a very nice beer. And I was like, this is a keeper. And that was probably the third beer I ever brewed.
And that's eventually what evolved into becoming the Dark Father.
What came into the Dark Father.
Now, how did you come up with the name Dark Father? I mean, Darth Vader dressed as a pimp, that's pretty creative.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, every single beer I've ever brewed, even from the very first one, I came up with a name and I created a label for it. I didn't just call it the ale, or blonde ale, or anything like that. I actually came up with names. And this one came out so dark that I actually called it Dark Side. I had other versions of the Dark Side. I had the Black Sabbath version of the Dark Side. I had the Deathwater version of the Dark Side. Varying alcohol contents and various recipes and tweaks here and there. But it comes to time for production, and I've still been calling it the Dark Side. I've been calling it the Dark Side for 5 years. Well, my graphic designer actually asked me if I'd done a search on this recently. I was like, well, maybe a year ago. And he goes, well, you should search on it now. Well, there's another company that's got a beer called the Dark Side Vanilla Porter.
Yep, I'm very familiar with that one.
That's when this was like 2 days before I was printing labels for this beer. And I'm like, crap, what am I going to do now? So I stayed up all night drinking beer and watching the Star Wars trilogy.
Looking for some inspiration.
The whole thing. And it was around Return of the Jedi, I guess, when they're in the Cloud City and Darth they're doing their lightsaber fight now in the center and cuts off Luke's hand, and this is Luke, I'm your father. I was like, that's it, Dark Father. And that's how it became Dark Father. And just a long time ago when I first started doing Dark Side, I just came up with this hat thing and, and said, what the heck, he's macking the Dark Side.
Nice.
And it appeals to the geek in me. We've all got it. I don't care who you are, you love Star Wars. If you admit it or not, everyone loves Star Wars. And, and then my graphic designer, took my very rudimentary, crappy image that I had and brought it to life with his illustrator.
And it's a wonderful graphic.
Came up with, a great image and a great illustration for the label. And now with that whole thing, and again, not being categorized, it is an American stout. Maybe it's not an American stout, I don't know. But I knew it was going to be Imperial because of Darth Vader.
Nice.
So it's not an Imperial stout, it's an
Imperial stout. So let's talk about the beer here a little bit. I'm definitely getting a nice, good coffee flavor out of it. It's got a nice smoothness to it. I am detecting a little bit of a higher alcohol presence in here.
Yes.
What's the ABV on this one?
9.6.
Okay, I don't want to drink too many of these before I have to drive home today.
9.3, my mistake.
9.3?
Yeah, that was one of the goals as well. There's a few characteristics of stout that I don't like. I don't like it when they're heavy, and thick like syrup, and I don't like the long, lingering, bitter aftertaste on a lot of stouts. You
definitely have achieved that. So I mean, I'm noticing that it's very well balanced, but yeah, it's still. For a 9.7, I think this is probably the most drinkable 9.7% beer I've ever had.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, easily.
Well, I'm not an efficiency expert, but I do like I don't like to waste time. So, thing is, I almost called this thing Blackout too, because there was too many of these, and you don't remember a lot. I also toyed around with the name Abduction. You end up with missed time after several of these. But no, it was one of the things that I really wanted a very light-bodied, easy-drinking, big, heavy beer, that wasn't thick and syrupy. And that's the beauty of craft brewing, is that you make what you want.
Yep, exactly.
And that's exactly what I like.
You did a very good job on this one. So
very much. Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing this one hit the shelves on November 1st, right?
November 1st.
You gonna be in Fort Perkins for sure?
I don't know yet. My production is so small, I'm actually afraid of going to places like Fort Perkins that go through a lot of volume, because the last thing I want to do is have my beer there and then run out of it, and not be able to give them more.
So you guys heard it here, and keep an eye on our Facebook page and our Twitter account, and also on Bent Brewstillery's website, of course, and we'll keep you posted about when these beers are available out there. we want you guys to go out there and rush out and get it on the first batch. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're moving. Let's move on to the audience questions. So, Andy, what we dig out of the mailbox today?
Okay, Angelo from Oaxaca, Wisconsin asks, with all the tastings, beer events, and quality control, how do brewers do their job without being drunk on a regular basis?
That's the most creative question we've had.
That's actually a very good question, and to tell you the truth, my wife actually accused me of wanting to have a distillery just so that I could drink all the time. To tell you the truth, I drink less now than I did before. It's hard to find the time. It's actually great to have opportunities like this where we can sit around and have a beer and talk about it. I'm up till midnight most nights, but that's not drinking and gallivanting. It's actually working.
It's a lot of work.
So that really takes care of itself. And as far as the tastings, I was at ABR a couple of weeks ago, and I was not ready for it to be over yet because I hadn't had enough to drink yet. You're so busy with pouring beers and talking to people that you don't have a chance to take a sip of your own beer that you've got tons of right there in front of you. You're surrounded by it, could swim in it if you want to, but you are really just enjoying the time that you're there, and you're not thinking about picking up your beer and drinking it. You're just talking, so it takes care of itself, believe me.
Okay, Victoria from Hastings, Minnesota asks, since you and Pour Decisions are in the same building, do the two breweries ever collaborate on a beer?
Breweries collaborate on beers a lot. If you look around the United States, I've noticed that there's not a lot of collaborations here in the Twin Cities, and I'm a bit confused by that, but it's something that I'm definitely interested in doing with either Pour Decisions or any of the other friends I have in the brewing community. I think it's a great way of mutual promotion. It's a great way of using capacity at either brewery. A lot of times in other cities it's used by the small guy to get out there, by piggybacking on the big guy. In our case, it'd be easy as, two same-size guys getting together, and I think that sort of creative process is important. The melding of two different breweries creates something completely new in and of itself that wouldn't have existed, as two separate breweries. So I think collaborations are a great idea, and I look forward to doing some.
Okay, Mark from Evergrove Heights, Minnesota asks, which of your favorite beers would you say have influenced the beers you make?
Yeah, going back again to the very early days of home brewing, I didn't really drink a lot of craft beer, so kind of what I was going for was a Michelob style beer, something that was very light, clean finishing, easy to drink, and that evolved into the Nordic Blonde. But it's not that it's an inspiration of beer, but that's what I was drinking at the time. I did occasionally have a Black Blue, or I guess into the craft world, I did every so often get a little bit of the Big Sky Scapegoat.
Okay. Yep.
And that one, was more along the lines of a craft beer, and and I had the Leinenkugels too quite a bit. The Honeyfaust was again, I thought a very drinkable beer. Now I look back at a lot of those and say, wow, I can't believe I really liked that back then. But everyone's taste evolved.
Oh yes.
At the time, so it's kind of where that's come from.
From St. Paul Park, Minnesota asks, what larger brewery would you most want to be like as you grow bigger?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, I've always, ever since, again, my first meeting with the Liftbridge guys and at that Chili Festival, those guys have done a great thing with the craft beer industry, and being pioneers in it, and probably one of the bigger of the early craft breweries, that are still considered, craft. I definitely would hope to be around their size, and the guys at Lucid too. Love those guys a lot. They've done a great thing for the beer industry, and to grow up to be that size would be great, And the thing is, though, I want to get there at my pace. I don't have these aspirations of doubling in size every 10 minutes. I I like to grow comfortably. I like to grow as the books allow. As opposed to going into crippling debt or anything like that. I really like to grow at my pace. But that definitely hope to be huge someday.
Well, we hope so too. So, Andy, any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Well, everybody, that's it from the Poor Decision Brew House, which is also, again, the home of Bent Brewstillery. And we look forward to seeing some great things from your production line here in the future. And thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Prost.
Prost.
Don't forget, if you like the show, make sure you click that little like button down there. It means a lot.